Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 386. I'm your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is currently the 30th of April. The month is nearly finished. Wait, the end of April is a holiday too? Or is it the end of May is that holiday? You know, the holidays in this beautiful land of Trinidad and Tobago, the island paradise, these holidays come fast and furious. That might be part of the reason some people say that this is not a real place. So if we're not a real place, then maybe I don't really exist and this is all strangely virtual. Have you considered that? Hi, good night, Michelle. You know, I wonder if it's my fault that your username changed from your full name to Michelle after that live where I kept reading your full government name because it was your username. We must subsidize everything for the proletariat. Oh gosh, these communists and them. Hey, Ronnie. Reeve, I always thinking I late. Well, you always might be late, but the only question is whether I am later. That's the question. Hey, the days are busy, man. The days are busy. If this could have paid a few more bills, then we'd have made sure it started every time at 9. But as it stands right now, there are other things that have to pay the bills in order for this to occur. So those other things, you know, sometimes they take priority. Good night, positive radiation, bro. Yeah, you couldn't hide with a surname. Wow, a surname, huh? Freudian slip with a surname like that. You couldn't hide. Anyway, people, once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button. Double tap the screen over there on TikTok. If you're wondering how to hit the like button there, hit that like button over on YouTube. Drop a comment if you have something to say. You can feel free to subscribe Nathan Springer over there on YouTube, where you can catch all of these lives on repeat. If you miss it, you can go back and rewatch all of these lives. When I'm talking about Mindful Live 386, it kind of gives you a picture of how many other lives there are, so you could feel free to go back through the list and catch up on any lives you might have missed. What about the government that has the highest interest rates in the last decade? Interest rates on what? Ooh. Did I discuss the drama with the central bank auditor? No, not yet. We're now jumping in. You see the boss lady under pressure. Which boss lady that is? Tanti Cams? Which one of the boss ladies? You know, Trinidad is the home of boss ladies, eh? Trinidad is the home of boss ladies. Nobody could really come out and say Trinidad is a sexist country. Big Sharky. Yeah, Trinidad, nobody could say that. Lady Prime Minister, Lady President, Lady Auditor General, Lady Solicitor General, we had a Lady Attorney General. Everybody at every level. Boss ladies everywhere in Trinidad. If you are a misogynist, Trinidad is the wrong place to live. You'd be angry every day of your life. The ladies are in charge of everything. I forget we had a president. Michelle, we had two lady presidents. Two lady presidents back to back. Pop. They make 3 DCPs. 2 out of the 3 DCPs are women. Imagine that. And wasn't that like the first DCP promotion in like a decade or something like that? They finally promote some DCPs. 2 out of 3. 2/3. 66% women. The head of UE right now, the UE principal right now, but the boss babes take over in Trinidad. Just so you know, we have a lady minister of crime. don't do tanti that. Don't do tanti that. The only thing is, as far as I know, the top criminals are still men. Reputed. The top reputed criminals are still men, as far as I know. But other than that, the ladies running it. The ladies are running it. Now, here's an interesting conflict as we start off. You thought so, eh? Two done jump in there, Michelle, and you still wondering about the first one. The first one was the former judge Weeks. Her name is just slipping me. Weeks is the only name I remember. Paula May, right? Paula May. And now we have her honor, Christine Kangaloo. What's the one for president? What's the title for president? The honorable president. Your Grace. What is it? Something. Good night, Krimak. Good night. Over there in the police, you all know, but we saying excellency, right? Excellency, her excellency. My bad, her excellency. Krimak, we were talking how all corners of Trinidad are we boss babed up. We are boss babed up out here in Trinidad. The police service has a lady on top. I heard when they promoted 3 DCPs the other day, 2 of them went to women, boss babes in every corner. But here's an interesting dilemma I was reading, not directly to do with the boss babes. This is something separate here. When we were talking about protectionism last week, we brushed up on some honey and the bacchanal that's going on with the honeybees and the importation of honeys that they're going to now allow, possibly because of some lobbying by Guyana. But it's going to be very interesting what happens with that import, because it seems like they're trying to squeeze out the locals too. But there is some protectionism in Trinidad and Tobago. We know what that looks like in our political landscape, in our economy, because we saw that happen with TCL, where the government protected TCL by basically squeezing out rock hard. And part of the reason that would be said to be there, the reason for that would be because TCL is a local manufacturer. They're not a local company. They're owned mostly by a Mexican company, but they are a local manufacturer, as in they have a factory in Trinidad and Tobago, which would bring in money and resources and stir the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's in the government's interest, I suppose, that's what they would have us believe, to protect TCL, and they did just that. The interesting thing now that they protected TCL, and I'm watching a contract given here to TCL. This is just very curious to me. Maybe all of this is above board and maybe it's for good reason and all of that, but it's still just very curious to me. Very curious. Hold one moment, let's get that audio jump right. Change that there. Good. Yeah, this is just interesting to me. TCL secures 4 public concrete road paving projects. Had a client just this week, his entire API was raided and they destroyed the hives. I am unsurprised by that. But you do not want to frustrate your working class population. That doesn't end well. Ask the French, ask the Russian aristocrats. TCL secures 4 public concrete road paving projects. The Trinidad Cement Limited Group reports an uptick in requests for concrete road paving in Trinidad and Tobago, with 4 confirmed public projects slated for this year. TCL's managing director, Francisco Aguilera Mendoza, doesn't sound like a very Trini name, does it? Well, I mean, Trini is changing with our influx of local Venezuelan migrants now, so maybe that might be a Trini name too. Made these comments in the company's annual report, which was posted on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange on Monday. Now, isn't it interesting? In the land of the Pitch Lake, an area on the Earth's surface that bubbles up this black gooey substance that is perfect for paving roads. We are paying the cement company to make concrete roads. Now, here's the thing. Maybe it's that our oversight into road production is so poor that the asphalt roads just aren't good enough, and we think like we're going to get a better deal with the concrete roads. Maybe that's the case. But I would like to believe that it's possible to create an asphalt road, a road using pitch that is as strong as and resilient as the concrete roads. And we have this thing basically popping out of the soil free. And let's bear in mind that though TCL has a local factory, it's a Mexican-owned majority company. So we're giving a contract to a Mexican company to provide cement to pave our roads, to surface our roads, while we have a pitch leak. Like, what's going on here? What's wrong with the pitch? Are you telling me in this country? Yeah, Shad, we're going there soon. You're telling me in this country, with all of our engineers and capabilities, we cannot produce a substance to pave our road that is as up to mark as concrete? Is not TCL under the control of several shareholders? Well, yeah, but CEMEX is the majority shareholder of TCL. We can't get pitch out of our pitch lake by Cremac. And you really start to wonder. I see someone said about the Belt and Road Initiative there. And you know, there are rumors that we don't own our pitch lake anymore, that it was basically gifted over to our Chinese friends. You could wonder about something like this. Is it true? Why are we getting concrete roads in the land of pitch? In the land of pitch, we're getting concrete roads. Now, here's the thing. If you're looking at this, and you know everybody looks at things these days with concern for the climate. For the climate and our climate management and all of that. How many of the ingredients in cement are found locally? The clinker, limestone, cork, and chalk, and whatever, all of those things. How much of that is found locally? Or how much do they import? They source all of their raw materials locally, Cremac. Are you sure about that? Because I read in this right here that they spoke about their import of raw materials. So I don't believe that they source all of those materials locally. Kevon says that's like Touchstone coming from Canada to drill onshore. Why couldn't we do that even if the 1%? I don't know about that, Cremac, because I know they don't source all locally. I am sure about that. Find out which ministers have shares in that company. Wouldn't that be interesting? Who benefits if we get concrete roads versus if we get pitch asphalt roads? And I'm curious also to know what is the price difference. Is it cheaper by chance? I'm not sure. If you hire someone to pave a road with asphalt versus hiring someone to cast the road with concrete, which one would cost you less? Cremac says we have untouched quarry lands. Cremac, I believe we have enough quarries. Trinidad isn't big enough to just be digging out all our mountainsides, so like leave us with some mountainsides now. How much quarry we would quarry on an island? We'd be like the the Ingolok and them oh gosh, what planet were they from where they eat out the planet? Oh gosh. Oh gosh, this weird planet name. And they eat out their whole planet. You all know what I'm talking about? It's not Pactas. Pacascas, right. We can't go and Pacascas down the thing. We can't just be using out all of our we barely have a mountain range. How are we gonna break down the mountain range fast for soil and aggregate? Come on now, man. Ingolok, and we can't Ingolok the scene. We cannot Ingolok the scene. I think it's a bit of laziness and poor engineering because they'll do it in slabs, I'm sure. Of course, Michelle. And you know, being in construction a bit, I am tempted to believe, listen, I will not put my head on a block for any government because they will chop it off. And I have no doubt that the government could cut you with wet brown paper. But I'm tempted to believe that we'd get smoother roads with concrete. I'm tempted to believe that. Like, concrete, you don't have to get the roller and all of that good. If you vibrate it properly, it's supposed to be smooth all on its own. I am more hopeful for better roads with concrete. But then, I will not be surprised you look so and you find out that they bad mix the concrete, they put less cement in the mix than they're supposed to, and gravel rolling off of the concrete road. The concrete is reverting into cement and gravel on our roads. That will not surprise me either. White Leather says a local contractor shot the bed on the plane runway in Piaco and got the contract to redo his own shoddy work. Well, sweet TNT, eh? Trinidad says concrete roads sound great. Just wait until it needs to be repaired. Everything will need reparations. Dalip Jairam says corruption galore, sliding doors were ordered for a bridge in Maruka years ago. Michelle says you can imagine the skid on that exactly. If gravel starts to come off of concrete, that's going to be a disaster. Sylvan says when it's smooth, it will be slippery. Think Parliament, yeah. But I'm hoping that they have those considerations and they're not going to go and power float the concrete roads. They leave some amount of roughness on the road. Trini Hotep says, well, a little bad construction is the Trini way. Such culturally strong norms. Because when they have concrete roads in Grenada, they generally smoother, at least time I was there. Yeah, people. So, concrete roads apparently. But let's jump over to the Auditor General. People have been asking about that. What is the bacchanal going on with this Auditor General business? Imbert, Auditor General, ministry staff saying opposite things. Falsehoods under probe. A full independent investigation is to be conducted into the very serious accusations of improper conduct made by the Auditor General through Freedom Law Chambers against the Minister of Finance and or officials of the Ministry of Finance. The allegation is that the ministry or minister unethically backdated the country's amended accounts from April 16 to January 31st to cover the ministry's financial mistake. So said the minister yesterday in a statement to the Senate in which he responded to the legal letter from Freedom Law Chambers. Imbert said the findings of the investigation would be reported to the Public Service Commission and any other relevant office holder for their review and whatever action these independent institutions deem appropriate. So here's my curiosity, the initial curiosity I have here. Who is going to do this investigation? I have a feeling they're going to hire a lawyer again. As I keep telling people, I am convinced government is URP for lawyers. One of them made a mistake or did nonsense, and they're going to hire one of their lawyer friends. I will not even be surprised, because they're so bold with it, if you see the same name of our president's husband pop up again, because it pops up kind of regular. If you all know what name to look for. Another state brief to investigate another something, and he walk away with $2 million off of government foolishness. They make their whole livelihood surrounding mopping up messes that the government throws out. The government is walking with a bucket and throwing water on the floor, and they're walking with a mop, mopping it up. And that's their job, and they are paid some of the most money in the country to do that job. The job that is only created because the government keeps throwing stuff on the ground for them to do. Imbert said the letter flagrantly misrepresented statements made by him in the House of Representatives on Friday in the debate on the motion to extend the deadlines of the Exchequer and Audit Act, and he said it aimed to falsely accuse the government of attempting to coerce and intimidate the Auditor General into doing its bidding in breach of the law. Later in the sitting, Imbert said the independent investigation would also probe who was speaking the truth between the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance officials on whether documents relevant to the reconciliation of the $2.6 billion understatement of revenue was submitted to the Auditor General. And here's my question. To what end? Good night, Daniel Knights. To what end? This investigation would figure out who is telling the truth between the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance. The investigation comes in and says we haven't come to 100% conclusion, but based on the evidence, it seems like X is the case. And then what? And then what? What comes next? Nothing. So again, $2 million for a lawyer friend to investigate for nothing. Like, you know, I'm kind of reaching the point where don't bother to investigate. Like, let me forget the investigation and let me go on with life. Let's go on with life. Forget it. Forget it. Forget the investigation. We'll work forward. We'll work forward. Auditor, you're afraid for the Auditor General's life? I'm not, actually. I am not. I don't think that her life is in danger in a case like this. In a case like this, I don't think it's a life in danger kind of scene, because I don't see how taking her out is going to benefit anybody. It's not going to benefit anyone. Her accusations are not of a criminal nature. Nearly nothing, even if everything she says is true, no one is going to go to prison for it. No one is going to go to prison for it. It's barely enough to sway the electorate. So I just don't think it's something that bears enough weight. She is not Dana, exactly. Dana was involved in possibly putting people behind bars. That's a whole different issue. It's not something, at least not obviously, it's not obviously going to stymie somebody's payday. I like what Bukele did recently with his cabinet. What did he do? I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, I just don't think that, like, what she's is accusing there is of that kind of nature. You realize while everyone's suffering, Massey, Republic Bank, etc., posting billions in profit? Yes, of course, of course. And as I almost always say with those things, that's crony capitalism for you. When you have banks that aren't in a free market, they aren't competing really and truly. You are locked into the market. That's why banks don't act like a business anymore, you know. Banks have a kind of government feel now. Banks bully you. You go into the bank and they kind of rough you up unless your money cross over a certain level. Then they return to being you return to being their customer, and they return to acting like a business trying to get your sale. But on that certain, they don't care. They don't care because you have no choice. It's not a competition in a free market kind of business. You have to come here to do what you have to do. They don't care. They will take all your money. If you don't put in enough money, all your money is going in a year. Kuvon said he assembled everyone and said the AG will investigate all the ministers, chief of staff. Ooh, nice. But Linda's closing down the high street location. Yeah, I heard that. I'm flabbergasted. Return to relationship banking. Get regulation out of banking. Like, at some point in time, we have to figure out. We have to realize we being fooled in it. They convinced us, the government and those in authority convinced us that the amount of regulation they're putting in banking is to keep the economy safe from fraudsters and criminals. The fraudsters and criminals still abound. And banking is a million times harder, and we are locked into 4 banks. So the regulation did nothing on the criminal side. All it actually did was make sure that the competition in banking disappeared. Regulation. Daniel says Linda's took too long to close down with those hard things there. Michelle says, I feel as if this is the beginning of the end, the systemic destruction of the middle class. Well, that has been occurring for a while. Have you tried to open a bank account? Yes. they want everything, especially for someone like me who is mostly self-employed. You have to get a lot. They want to know everything. Too much of my business for my liking. You saw Peg 8010 today. PEG. Well, you know Trinidad has money. Mr. Embert says, and I really don't want to dive deeply into the whirlpool of accusations and counter accusations, and that is why we are having an independent investigation, because the Auditor General is saying that, and the staff and the ministry are saying the opposite. They are saying we presented everything, so let somebody else determine that. This is such an interesting case. The Auditor General is saying they did something, and they are saying starkly opposite. The thing I always talk about regularly, and I hear people in the know talk about this when they're talking about public servants and their relationships with politicians. You don't let any politician put your job in jeopardy, you know. The public servants inside of the ministry aren't generally expected to be PNM loyalists. They're public servants. I hope, if indeed there was some malfeasance going on, that no public servant ain't going to put their name on anything to get themselves in trouble. Because the way how it works regularly is, if a politician does something criminal, they might lose an election. If you, as a regular George and a regular Jane, do something criminal, you going to prison. Oh, Chris Scott, I'll always remember, but to show you the nature of this, good old Silver Fox Uncle Bass say he making prison for the people, he going to jail for the people. Listen, when Nelson Mandela was thrown in prison for the people, he had no choice. He was imprisoned. They took him and imprisoned him. Mr. Bass, no offense to your legacy, sir, but if you could decide to leave the prison when you see fit, you aren't making prison like the rest of us. That's not Nelson Mandela kind of prison. Uncle Nelson couldn't walk out the prison when water got more than flour. He couldn't decide, well, I had enough. Boss, please let me out now. Apartheid folks. No. So public servants should keep that in mind. All politicians don't go to prison. Imbert said, "We will demonstrate the allegations made against me as Minister of Finance and the dedicated public servants involved in production of the national accounts on an annual basis are totally false," he said. However, that it was important to identify for the record the office holders whose character and reputation the Auditor General through Freedom Chambers has impugned. Throughout the letter from Freedom Law Chambers, the terms Minister of Finance and Ministry of Finance and reference to the officials of the Ministry of Finance are commingled and confused with the persona of the Minister of Finance, with the clear intention to give the false impression that the original and amended public accounts for the financial year 2023 were prepared and submitted to the Auditor General by the Minister of Finance himself, when nothing could be further from the truth, he said. Now, I understand what he's attempting to say, but I don't like these distinctions. I don't like the amount of plausible deniability that many of these ministers enjoy. Where he's basically saying that he doesn't like the way their letter mixed up all the terms relating to Ministry of Finance, Minister of Finance, the office in the Ministry of Finance and the workers in there. But if you are the head of that office, nearly all decisions can be attributed to you unless you otherwise point it out. You have to be the one to distance yourself from the decisions. This is your office. If there's a mindful office that releases statements, and I'm the face of mindful, when someone reads a statement from mindful, they'll read it as if it's a statement from Nathan. And if I don't want it to be that way, then I have to be the one to separate myself from it. I can't just expect people to automatically understand that there's a separation there. I don't like that distinction. Imbert said, "For the avoidance of doubt, the Minister of Finance does not prepare, declare, certify, or submit the national accounts to the Auditor General, and no Minister of Finance has done this for decades, if at all." He said the accounts were prepared, declared, and certified and submitted by the accounting officer in the Ministry of Finance, who is the permanent secretary, and are co-signed by the Comptroller of the Accounts and the Treasury Director. So is he saying that the Minister of Finance has no part to play in that process? If that's the case, I don't like that. Well, I don't like that. That sounds ridiculous to me. It sounds ridiculous to me that a political office like the Ministry of Finance, that is headed by a political appointee, the Minister of Finance, has significant aspects of it that are not accountable to the chief officer. What is that? Oh, what's that? Michelle says that's like the Minister of National Security saying he's not responsible for keeping people safe. That was so ridiculous. And I will still rate the Minister of National Security saying that. I'll say that's even less strange than the Minister of Finance having zero responsibility in the audit coming out of his ministry. I don't like that. I want it to be that the political head has the responsibility. The financial statements are done by the accounting officers. I don't mind the statements being done by them, but it has to be okayed by somebody. Michelle asks why we have ministers again. And you know, that's actually true. We could delete all of our ministers, and the functionaries in the public service will keep running most of our public service for the day to day. And to me, that's a problem because we don't want unelected officials making those calls. To me, it's either we do away with the government and run the thing, or we allow the government to actually run the thing. I don't understand how a statement leaves the ministry without your vetting. Maybe that's why in the committee stage of the budget, they often have to lean over to their PS. Yep, people who can... Kieran is admin dictators don't know what dictatorship is. Yes, Ronnie.
Good night, good night.
Good night.
Just very shortly, I'm here to speak very briefly on this. Yeah, so basically the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance is not even paid like the regular permanent secretaries. She's actually paid more than them because her responsibilities are a bit than regular PSs, as well as the comptroller of accounts of the Trinidad Tobago. So those people are responsible for the preparing of and approving of financial statement. It really and truly, the ministers don't really have a say in it, because what would they say? They have no idea what the running of their ministry even is like. Unfortunately,
and
again, somebody.
And that's the problem. To me, that's the problem.
Strangely enough, all ministers do is go to Parliament. I mean, even very rarely when I was working in administration, that very rarely you would see the minister come into the ministry. Very rarely they would go to Parliament. They might go off-site to do some here and there photo ops or whatever, and they'll come into the office once in a blue moon. The PS is the one that is really responsible, like as the person say, when budget come around, is the PS just have to go in Parliament or wherever and state why they want what they want. The minister has no say in that.
And to me,
the minister doesn't do anything with that. Even if they do show, is the PS passing them all the notes?
To me, I find that ridiculous. We have a democratic system where we are supposed to vote for the people that run the country. If you're telling me that the people who run the country are appointees who may have been appointed since 1998, and we have nothing we could do to hold those people accountable. There's not a shield. There are millions of layers of shields between the general public and them. There's no kind of voting you could do to get to them. And they are the actual decision makers for the running of the country and the spending of the public purse. That is ridiculous. That's in the US. That's what the right-wing side always complains about with the deep state, where there are appointees who are put into positions where they cannot be removed, and they make the decisions on how to run the country, which makes the whole thing undemocratic. That's by definition an undemocratic system. You're getting an undemocratic system. So all I need to do as a politician is I put in a loyalist who is loyal to my party, and then I don't even have to worry about what happens there, because there you can't go at them because they are under the ministry and the minister. So you could try at me, and if you try at me, I say that's not my purview. I have no idea what's going on. So you just have to take what comes down the pipeline and shut up.
Well, then again, remember, these people who are in these positions, they aren't appointed per se by the government, even they are regular public servants that went in, took as clerk ones and worked their way up. They went and they get degrees, they get masters, and then they sat exams to go up the chain. So it's not even to say like, oh, well, the
I understand what you're saying, Ronnie. I understand and agree, but are you saying you don't think there are political machinations behind the scenes on who becomes permanent secretaries?
Well,
you think that's
really,
all a merit-based system?
Okay, so I would have personal information on people, like those people, so I wouldn't say that they politically inclined to lean that way. So if
no. I am not saying that the people are political functionaries. I'm not casting aspersions on them like that. I'm saying that don't you think there are political machinations behind? So here's an example, and something that I've maybe heard about possibly through a grapevine, whatever. So there are certain appointments that the government may not make, but they could cancel. So there are certain people who may be qualified for positions, but they will never get that position if a certain government is in charge. The government may not look for a specific person with their party card, but they may make sure a certain group of people who they think may not go in their favor never get in that position. And those things do happen. Michelle, I'm not saying this by guesswork. I know that for a fact. Especially when you're talking about the people that get in on the inner circles of some of those things. Trust me, there are names on block lists, as it were. There are people who could apply till the cows come home and they would always be ignored. Gary Griffith, police commissioner. Need we say any more?
That was appointed.
No, wait. What you saying, Ronnie? That was the Police Service Commission. Just like there's the Public Service Commission, not so?
That was appointed.
No, but wait. That was from the Police Service Commission, the Independent Police Service Commission. And the Public Service works under the Independent Public Service Commission too?
There is a list, though. There is a list.
There was a list for the commissioner too, not so?
Well, that's different.
Oh!
This is different.
Oh, you're right. That's different. Yes. Different.
Yeah, it is different.
Real different.
To do like,
you could probably influence the Police Service Commission, but you see that Public Service they
I'm not saying that you can't.
Impossible.
I'm not saying that you can't, but what I'm saying is a little bit more difficult to infiltrate the public service.
And I agree. That's why I said, Ronnie, I don't think like it would be as easy to get somebody you want in the position as some people might say they did with the commissioner. But that's why I reference not somebody you want, but keep the people you don't want out of the positions. Those things are done.
Yes, but just to answer Michelle, it's not that the money was missing, and this is what, and it's not error. The money wasn't an error. To see it, it was submitted late. So basically, they submitted, which listen, them things just happen a lot.
Well, then why make the bacchanal with it?
Because normally it don't make like big news like how it makes this time. Because what happened is, you wanted it was supposed. So they realized the error, right? And they said, look, oh shucks, we have this document here, but the date had already closed. So I don't know if because pre-action protocol that was going out, I want to be very smart about what I say. I don't know if it was a case of, well, this is my first year as being the Auditor General, so I'm going to make my name happened, and it's like, I'm not accepting that document because the date already closed off. I don't want to care about all the information that you now bringing for me. That deadline done passed. But I have seen cases where you get information late, when you don't have all the information, and you go and you do your audit, and then you come and you say, oh, well, I didn't get all the information, but I am closing the audit with this, and as more information comes along, we'll come back to your audit. So I know that happens.
But here's the thing with that though, Ronnie, from the story. As I am not inside anything, I'm reading from the outside, as I almost always do. What as it played out according to what they're saying. She asked for legal advice from the Attorney General. So someone said the issue is that she went for an attorney. She asked for legal advice from the Attorney General. And he was already advising the Minister of Finance on the issue. So that's part of the problem there already. She went for, if it was possible.
But the Attorney General is under the Attorney General.
I know. But when she went for advice from him, he said that he told her he was already advising the Minister of Finance, so he could not advise her. Now, to me, that's what he said in his own words. And he's a man of proper law etiquette and being a member of the inner bar and etc. etc. etc.
No, don't get me wrong. I fully agree with the Auditor General because, like I said, the time was closed up. They just never had it happen to them before.
Right. And listen, this is my understanding of the situation. She wasn't necessarily making much ado about it. The Minister of Finance started the expose on this. And when he made his statement, it would have forced a reply from her. Because you're saying you don't know if it's her trying to make her name being her first year or whatever. It could be her trying to save her name being her first year. Because as I said, you aren't a politician. You aren't here to get votes and lose votes. This is your professional career. Mistakes made by you look bad on your resume. This isn't for just now. Let me. I'm going through this story as I understand it, and the way the Minister of Finance initially made the statement, it could have seemed like there was some kind of error or misunderstanding on her part. So she wanted to make sure it's understood. She, in terms of professionally, made all her steps correctly. And she wanted to make sure that she was in right legal standing to make that statement. So she went initially to the Attorney General to make the statement. Unfortunately, the Attorney General was already advising the Minister of Finance on the issue, which is interesting in and of itself. So he advised her to go get another lawyer. He advised her. And listen, if I am in a monkey pants between me and the government, I am looking for Freedom Law Chambers myself. I'm letting you all know. But in looking for Freedom Law Chambers, when they send out a pre-action protocol letter towards the government, being that there is some political tension between those, they obviously are going to make their pre-action protocol letter a bit more venomous, very likely. So it would immediately put her at loggerheads with them. But on her side, I don't know if I would say that's the wrong move.
No, that's not what I'm saying, you know. That's not what I'm saying. I agree with the lady in terms of what happened and whatever. I think that, and as I was advised previously to other people in the Auditor General, is if you don't have the information, you don't have all the information, you could go back. So I think what was like a bit of what you call a back and forth is just that the new information was put forward and it was like, nah, well, you're bringing this too late for me. Like, I don't care anymore for that. That is what I'm saying. But I agree with her terms of you want to save yourself, so you could say, well, I see whatever. And even this was last year.
What, the audit?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. Congratulations. Okay. Good for them. Let me say myself.
Seems they were setting up for a fall. Like, I don't know the exact of it, but it could nearly seem like in politics that's a regular thing, where the public servants and the functionaries, they get the fall for the politicians. And that could have been it. That the regular thing would have been, you say this, and the person in that position basically takes the fall, and it is what it is. They go along with everything.
If anybody was supposed to fall, it would be the minister, the PS in finance. That would be the person who had to take the fall, because they were the ones who would have prepared the financial statement, not the auditor general. She had no fall into things. She just looking at what was presented to her. So if anybody had to get it, the PS and the Minister of Finance, even the Comptroller of Accounts, could face some backlash before she.
And that could be exactly it. Sistren say, I'm not taking the backlash. I am not taking it. Not me. And that's where we reach right now. That's where we reach right now. So why the Minister of Finance talking to the AG? As you said, because they're co-workers and because they will be members familiar in the party together too. But I do find it interesting that the Minister of Finance already sought legal advice before the Auditor General, and he sought it from the Attorney General. That's interesting. That's interesting that he beat her to it.
Illegal. That's basically the lawyer for the government.
I know, but it's...
He should go to the Attorney General. But the Attorney General also have to understand that he has people under him, like the Auditor General, who is answerable basically to the government that he is legal for. So if she come to him, what harm it would have in hearing her out basically? But some of them are so high and mighty. It's like, oh, I don't do anything wrong. So if I hear on one side, I can't hear the next side. So bye. That kind of way, like, but I ain't uppity there. I don't break no rules. Bye.
I wonder, like in the case of the Attorney General, in a case like this, being the government, isn't it at all possible for the Attorney General to advise both of them in a way that comes to a mutual agreement and it not be unethical? That he basically acts as a mediator of sorts? That's not possible?
Are you insane? No, it have no mediating there. If the problem is, it have no mediating because that's not what the Auditor General is there for. The Auditor General is not there to commingle and find out why your thing takes so long and give you. No, the Auditor General is there to give. When she gives deadlines, she gives and she was very, very stern on her deadlines. That's one thing. She say if the deadline is a deadline, your documents aren't ready, That's your fault. And their documents weren't ready. What they should have done is ask for extension. If they felt so,
No, but
I think what they sought, right?
But that's what I mean in terms of mediation. I'm not talking about mediation as in getting them to kiss and make up. I'm talking about getting an amicable solution. As in, no, you don't need to backdate the thing allegedly. You could just ask for an extension, and the Auditor General is able to allow that extension. And right, well, great, we figured this out. Why not? Why wasn't that possible? Like, I would think that the Attorney General, being the chief legal counsel for them, would actually be able to facilitate something like that. Because what we want in terms of the country, we don't want a legal battle between those both areas that are tax funded, because it's going to be lose-lose for us. So how about we take the next area that is tax funded, the Attorney General, who we are already paying for legal advice, and he gives legal advice. That would make sense to me. Instead of promising to sponsor her free legal advice from Freedom Law Chambers. I tell you, URP for lawyers. She pointed out that in the basis that in the law she is independent and couldn't engage the Ministry of Finance. Engage how? I don't think as an independent office you can't engage another office. I don't think that's true. How does that work? Because you're independent, you can't engage another office? I don't get that. Neither do I agree.
Always engage. You engage all the time. You just have to engage properly.
Exactly.
And they engage all the time with every entity that they have to audit. So I don't understand why it would be an issue to... She could have even sent a letter to the PS and the what is called the Comptroller of Accounts to settle the matter in the first place. If it was so, you know, she could have engaged with them. She don't have to engage with the minister because we all... But even though you have to kind of as a formality, just a formality, come on.
Daniel Knight says that's what the AG pointed out to her in the debate, that based on the statement she was ill-advised. Well, then I blame him, because she came to him for advice. So if she was ill-advised and she came to you for advice, isn't that kind of on you? You knew what was the good advice to give her, but you decided not. Like, I am against those kind of on some ethical basis, you know. I am unable to hold two thoughts in my head because of my ethics. So we're going to pay somebody else out of the taxpayers' money, pay another lawyer several $100,000 just to figure this out. And then when that lawyer gives her advice, I come in Parliament to say that's bad advice. Why didn't I give her the advice in the first place? What kind of insanity is this? That does not make sense. Like, these aren't two antagonistic offices. The Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance aren't supposed to be antagonistic offices. They are supposed to be independent, but not antagonistic. They are supposed to work together. So why not allow the Attorney General, being the legal mind in the whole mix, to facilitate the working together? That would make sense to me. But I guess these things are just too complex for my simple mind to really understand. I'm just too simple to really get it. Apparently.
Yes, too simple. But I think, obviously, approaching the lawyer now, you say, you know, if you... And of course, I agree, if you're going up against the government, you have to go with... And who does go up against the government? But I think, partially, the problem was Mr. lawyer that she has is very, what do you call it, like, I don't know, vindictive in that way toward the government. So
yeah,
he would obviously, instead of, it probably had many steps he could have offered to her before this one, but he was like, going in full 100.
Yep. And that's the thing. That's the thing. And I love that. Being familiar with how some cases work with people like that, sometimes that may not have been her idea, you know. Her plan may have literally been legal advice. What should I do? What could we do? And your lawyer advises you, this is what we're going to do. And as I said, I could understand how she would end up there. Especially, listen, especially if I am in that office. I am the Auditor General. I go to the Attorney General over a mix-up thing I'm seeing happening here. I find the Ministry of Finance look like they're trying to pressure me to do something that I feel in my interpretation isn't the right way to do it. So I'm going to the Attorney General to advise me what you think you should. And then I hear the Minister of Finance already came for advice. I am starting to think, oh, well, this might be a significant issue. I'm looking for the top advisor I could get. So as I said, I could see how she ends up there. And I could see, Michelle, you're asking why the Minister of Finance went to the AG. I could see it. Remember, there would have been communication between the Auditor General and the Ministry of Finance before all of this. They would have been communicating and should have told them already that the deadline has passed, she can't do that, etc., 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 etc. So maybe seeing all of this occurring, knowing the Auditor General isn't necessarily known to be, isn't a known entity. They don't know what she's going to do. He could be seeking to cover his legal bases from the jump. And in terms of if I am Dr. Rowley, the head of the PNM, Imbert seemed to have made the right move, going for legal advice, because look where it ended up.
But partially it ended up that way because
he went for legal advice.
Yeah, because he went, she couldn't get advice from Amor.
Yep.
And Amor, this is all Amor's fault. I don't care. It's his fault. You should have listened to the lady and given her proper advice.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I don't know all the details of everything in the situation, but to me, that seems to be the thing that makes sense. That you listen and you give her the advice. And maybe all of this could have been avoided. Instead of probably going to court. And a court battle in this case is a lose-lose for the public, you know. Because it's the Auditor General's office and the Minister of Finance and his official capacity. Both of those offices would be sponsored by the state. If they lose, it would be paid for by the state.
Where does boy come from? I'm not reading.
Trinity from left field.
Wow.
Trinity from wide left field. Wide left field. Hey, you know, speaking of that, let's touch a sensitive case before we jump out here. A real sensitive one. It actually went to the courts. Judge, state failed child pornography victim. Judge laments TNT insatiable appetite. State compelled to equip police investigation. The court yesterday declared that the state failed to provide support and resources for police to investigate the cases of child pornography victims whose images are being circulated within hundreds of local online groups. The judgment was delivered by Justice Frank C. Prasad, for the win as usual, who cited the country's insatiable appetite for pornography. Over the past 2 decades and the unsolved violation and murder of Akil Chambers, the matter involved a constitutional motion brought against the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago by the Humanitarian Foundation for Positive Social Change, which sought to compel the state to investigate the dissemination of child pornography. Someone in this live was asking sometime, was it last week, about if we could get a writ of mandamus on the government. This is exactly what happened here, just by the way. This is what they went for. They basically got a ruling to force the government to do what their job is supposed to be. Now, the thing is, I don't know how useful a ruling like that is going to be in the real world. Like, I don't know if you could really force them to make that investigation happen. But it's interesting and it's a positive thing that they got it. The work of the Humanitarian Foundation and the desperate attempt by pornography victims to reclaim their lives and bring suspects to justice was the subject of a series of investigations. C. Prasad said the delay in investigation by the TTPS was contrary to the provisions of the Children Act, which in Section 40 outlaws the publishing, distribution, and transmission of child porn. The victims' constitutional rights enshrined under the Section B of the Constitution, it said, were infringed as a result. An order of mandamus was issued to compel the state to equip the police with the requisite resources to enable them to investigate allegations concerning the dissemination of child pornography with expedition. In addition, the AG was ordered to pay vindictory damages in the sum of $20,000. In May 2023, the foundation filed the constitutional motion seeking the interest of at least 25 women whose child pornographic images were being exploited within numerous online platforms, including Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, and others. The Express has extensively reported for over 1 year on the groups. The foundation's claim stated that the police had failed to launch an investigation and probe the materials being circulated within them. The failure prompted a complaint to the Police Complaints Authority, which the Express understands is still ongoing. Now, listen to this. Listen to this that went to the police, right? This thing that went to the police. Hear this headline. Cops lose evidence in child porn case twice. Yep. In September 2021, the woman made a second report in which she sought to outline and disclose everything she discovered. The information was supplied on a flash drive, but it was subsequently misplaced by the officer who took the report. Isn't that a thing? The woman, and again, this is a year later, 2022, the woman provided a statement to the police and a hard copy of the information previously provided by the NGO, which included the names and telephone numbers of alleged perpetrators, as well as 42 internet addresses or uniform resource locators, URLs, allegedly used by them to distribute the pornography. The hard copy of the information was lost by investigators. And you know, this provides a real difficulty in this issue. And I think, no offense to Justice Frank, I think he maybe doesn't totally understand it. Because there aren't resources, really and truly, that the government could give to the police that will make them able to break the Telegram encryption. That's not going to happen. Generally speaking, when you break those Telegram groups and people are arrested for what they do on Telegram and WhatsApp and stuff, it's not that the police got a warrant and they got the data from the ISP and they searched through the data for keywords and found the person like that, tracking them. No. Telegram is basically untrackable in a large extent. Nearly all of the investigations, and I urge you to go look at it. Go look at it. Nearly all of the investigations that yield fruit are old school investigations, just done online. In other words, an officer has to get someone to invite him to the group. He has to make friends on the group, be introduced to some people, and learn about them in real. And then, from that, hope you get them to send it on a trackable something, and then you catch them. So you actually have to have officers willing to engage and investigate. If the officers may be at fault, how are you getting that to happen? Michelle says, good grief, we in 1980 then got it. Not just that, Michelle. It's the nature of the technology. Telegram is made to be untraceable. When they talk about end-to-end encryption, and WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption too, it means that even if the authorities are able to get the data from the Telegram server, from the WhatsApp server, it's going to be nonsense to them. It could only be encrypted and decrypted end to end. They have to get someone's actual phone. How are they doing that? It's the nature of the technology. That's why, to me, the best defense for this is teaching your daughters not to show their naked bodies online. That's the best defense. The solution to this is not trying to get pervert police to join a porn group and arrest people. The likelihood is you might get a pervert police to join, and you're like, oh shucks, I always wanted to join in it. And you lost your investigation capability there. There are people out there where it can be done, these developers building backdoors. Listen, Telegram is used by terrorists around the world. The NSA, the CIA, all of those guys are always trying to get in those backdoors. They're not as easy. And in some cases, they seem not to exist. You're talking high-level hacking, even if it was possible. Doesn't work like that.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, Michelle is sounding so idealistic about things. And the truth of the matter is, there are consequences that you must pay when you wish to do stupid things. And it is a stupid thing to send pictures of yourself to people. And that's just a fact. And that is what we should teach. Much like we should teach that if you are raped, to go. Sorry, that was a conversation I was having earlier. But basically, if you rape, you have a few hours for DNA and them kind of thing. And sort out yourself, please. And don't come 20 years down the road to talk about.
And Michelle, children and ages, I understand that children of certain ages are more vulnerable and all of that. But to me, it's like fire. It's like fire. If you allow your child to go into fire, they will be burnt. There's nothing you could do to undo the burn. You allow your child to put their hand in fire, it's going to be significantly burnt, and nothing you do will undo that burn. The solution to that is not extinguishing all fires on earth. The solution to that is not attempting to make your child a fireproof suit. The solution to that is keeping your child away from fire. This is going to require discussion on developmental psych. I understand developmental psych, Michelle. I just don't buy the logic that it's impossible to train a child to not do something, and the only solution is to try to nerf the world and make it protected. It's not possible. It's a fool's errand. And in the process, while we're continually bad training our children because they are getting worse in those aspects, in the process where we're continually bad training our children and attempting to undo the consequences in the real world, we're just forcing them to hit the consequences harder and harder and harder. That's why kids are not tried as adults in court. I understand that. Okay, but children don't have good reasoning skills. That's why you put bars up on your doors. If you do not put a bar up on your door, and your child walks out your door and falls down the stairs and dies, can you sue the world to bring back your child? Can you tell the world that this child wasn't yet fully developed psychologically? Their prefrontal cortex wasn't yet developed. That's why they did something so foolish. Well, you could curse at the sky if you want. Your child is still going to be dead. The solution to that is putting up barriers to make sure your child, who is not fully developed, does not walk off an edge. I hope you're understanding the corollary. So, the solution isn't to undo the internet, which is not going to happen. You blame I could blame them too, but I'm not going to get adults to stop sharing porn. That's never going to happen. You're not going to get adults to stop sharing that material. You're not going to get the internet shut down. You're not going to get those apps to stop being private. Those things are not going to happen. I just said the solution. The solution is on the parents' side. Almost all is self-filmed, Trini Hotep. It's self-filmed. It's selfies. When they're talking about child pornography here, they're not talking about some weird, fat, balding man from Oklahoma kidnapping a baby or something. That's not really what they're talking about. They're talking about schoolgirls who have school boyfriends and send stuff to them, and it ends up circling the web. So the young woman in the lawsuit, her pictures, I believe, were from since 2015 or something like that, when she was young. When she was in school.
I have a problem though. I hate when they label these things child. Because it's a flavor they're trying to give.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They are purposefully trying to make this look a certain way. And they are trying to make the distribution look a certain way. And it's dishonest. And it is dishonest. Because it's not the same thing. And this has been an issue all the time. This isn't the same thing as pedophiles. We're not talking about pedophilia here, and that's what they're trying to make it sound like. And that's not the case here. So it's not as simple as blaming the parents. Yes, it is as simple as blaming the parents.
I blame the parents.
It is like, what else would you do? What else? Listen. Lots of people have rose-colored lenses about what reality is. Michelle, if you did psychology, I suppose you did some biology. If you did evolutionary biology, you would understand that forced copulation was a common part of human history. Normal. There was nothing that could have been done to stop it. The solution wasn't to teach the forcers not to force. Because that's a biological imperative. People seem not to understand these things. That's like watching a chicken. You're not going to undo how chickens do what they do. If you have a hen, you need to protect your hen. If you have a child, you need to protect your child. Like, how are we out here expecting the internet to be a safe place for a child? We're expecting the world to be bubble wrapped enough that our child should be able to take nude pictures of themselves, put it on the internet, and there are no long-term consequences from that? Short of banning phones. And what's wrong with banning phones, Michelle? If your child cannot control themselves with a phone, do not allow them to have a phone. What would you rather? Would you rather your child go through their teenage years with no phone and feeling odd, or would you rather them have pornography on the internet that is undeletable?
But Nathan, past that, there are adults that do these same things and they regret it same way.
Yeah.
Even this girl, who was the biggest stalker, Sukiana. Sukiana was the biggest stalker. She's a hoe and she just says she this and she just do whatever and she don't care. Sukiana today is like, you know, I regret I do OnlyFans. You know, I regret I behave like this. And she's a big woman. You understand? So fatherless children.
Michelle.
It does make mistakes.
Michelle.
But it have mistakes and it have mistakes.
No, but mistakes have consequences too. The adults are supposed to protect them. Exactly. By trying to avoid them making those mistakes. They are indelible mistakes, Michelle. If you go get pregnant, I am not supposed to kill the child to undo your mistake. It was a mistake. You didn't want to get pregnant. It was a mistake. But what we're supposed to delete the child? We're supposed to delete the consequence? Yes, they make mistakes, but mistakes have consequences. We cannot delete the consequences, Michelle. And like Michelle, this is what scares me a lot about the therapist and why I very often lean away from some of you guys' therapy and psychoanalysis, because it seems like excuse giving and lack of accountability, and I've seen the effect of some of that. I've done work with youth in communities and seen some of the youth that went down the psychoanalyst and therapist who made them a victim, who made them an infinite victim and always sorry for themselves, and it never yielded good results. And the people who took accountability for their actions, understanding that, yes, you could make mistakes, but there are mistakes you could make that you cannot undo the consequences of. So the best solution for those mistakes are to not make them.
Good night.
Good night.
So, I agree with everything that you were saying. This one saying I don't understand logic.
That made me smile.
Now, what I do understand is there's a differentiation between children and adults.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world where social media is rampant, crime is going up, people want to give their children phones for security reasons so that they can be reached, right? Now, you have WhatsApp, they have all these good forms of communication that can be used, but as with anything, there's a duality. There's good, it can be used for positive, and it can be used for negative. And I agree, you educate, you teach, you try to explain, right? I know many parents would have done all of that, right? But unfortunately, like I said, fortunately, or that is just how it is. Children between those ages, I think their psychosocial crisis is intimacy versus isolation, where they are seeking to form peer relationships, romantic relationships, and this goes all the way into the 30s, right? So they are trying to navigate that space with a not so developed mind as well as not so much social experience. So there's peer pressure, and I think it's really unfair to discount those things that children have to face, especially now. We face it when we were younger. It's worse for them. I have an 18-year-old, and I can tell you, I've talked my lungs out. I don't consider myself a bad parent. I'm a counselor, and I've done everything that I could have done. But sometimes children just make stupid mistakes, All right? They have hormones raging. I'm not saying mine did it, but I know of friends she would have told me and all of those situations. Children brought up, parents real talk them down. My daughter fall for some ridiculous something with a boy before in terms of a conversation, and I had to pull up on it. Right? And I was actually shocked. I was like, I taught you better than this. I grew you up better than this. So what is this conversation about? You know, and she had to be reflective, but I thank God it didn't go further than that. What I'm saying,
Because you stopped it. You just showed the solution there, Michelle.
hear what I'm saying, Nathan, hear what I'm saying. Because I found it before, right? Yes. Also, if somebody screenshotted the conversation, for example, her reputation may have been ruined. Understand what I'm saying? That children make mistakes.
I agree.
We all make mistakes. And to say, well, you know, they should have known better. Adults should know better too.
I
A woman
agree.
getting beat should know better, but yet she still goes back. So why do we have sympathy for a domestic abuse victim? And we don't.
I'm not saying I don't have sympathy for them, you know, Michelle. Let me clear up my point a bit better here. I am not saying I don't have sympathy for them. I'm not saying I don't understand it. I'm not saying that if we could catch all of those disgusting men, that we shouldn't jail them and punish them. That's not what I'm saying. I am talking solution. Because what I'm saying is there's no other solution than putting a greater weight on them. It might be unfortunate. It's like, all right, the SEA is becoming more competitive. That's not a good thing. I wish it wasn't like that. SEA is a placement exam. It's not supposed to be that level of competition. It's supposed to be, as it were, just run of the mill and see where best you position in this thing. But it's becoming more competitive. We can't undo the competition. So the solution is to put more pressure on the child. That's the solution. As it stands right now, as someone who exists within the system. Okay, we could try to change the system. We could have efforts on that end. But if you have a child within that system, you're going to put more pressure on them. Just as you did with your daughter. Made sure that you checked the conversation to make sure that it didn't go further. And in this, like, I'm not saying mistakes aren't going to be made. Let me put another factor in this. I would say, if there are 20,000 Trini young ladies with pictures out there on the internet sharing around, there are probably 250,000 Trini young ladies who sent pictures. There are many who sent that weren't revealed. You see, the wrong decision on that is not just sending, but in most cases, sending to a waste man on top of it. So there are compounded wrong decisions that I believe are avoidable. It's not like an unavoidable wrong decision. I understand wrong decisions could be made. I understand mistakes could be made, but it's avoidable. And as parents, as guardians, okay, we cannot undo the perverts of the world, so we caution them away from engaging.
This is why I say, Nathan, it is a lot more complex. And it goes back again to why people would make the choices that they make. There are big grown adults moving around here that make really stupid, in our eyes, choices. So why do we hold big adults to lesser consequences than children? Understand what I'm saying? I agree, consequences are consequences. This is unfortunately a consequence of an action. Can't get away from that. But I believe as adults are functioning in society, to allow perpetrators to get away with even thinking that they could share it is ridiculous to me. If it becomes in your possession, you delete because you fear the law or you have some moral grounding in you to know that this is wrong. Delete. Why are we even sharing it in the first place?
But Michelle, we can't cure the pervert's mind. We consume some of the most pornography per capita. We cannot cure their mind. So what would be the solution?
Put laws in place, Nathan.
Like what? Which law would we put in place to stop that?
Jail time. Jail time.
Okay, but you have to catch them. Jail time is already in the books. How are we catching them?
And that is the problem. Because if you could lose evidence twice, On a case like that, something is wrong. Again, I go back to
But it's easy. But it's easy to lose evidence like that. You see, it's easy to lose evidence like that.
For some reason, everybody have the job still.
No,
if it was me and I was in a position, I would have fired somebody already.
But Michelle,
Don't tell me,
Reginald Amos, Michelle Reginald Amos' office lost a whole file on a big case. All of a sudden, boop file was not inside his office. Then boop file come back in his office. He then lost his job, and he is the. Nobody think about the matter is this. No, I get what you're saying, but this is the thing. When it comes to things like this, it is more dubious and harder to convict people. You see, it's the same way how people think that all of a sudden.
Okay, so we'll just blame each other and say, yeah, this is how it is. You all just need to do better choices and then shut up, suck up the consequences of your actions because you have nobody to protect you. I refuse to accept that.
No, because this is the thing, right? The same argument people make for the need to put men inside of concentration camps to sort of hypnotize them to not rape women. It's the same argument people make for this as well. It's like, listen, there is no way. There's already consequences to certain things. We have punishments for crimes, but certain crimes are very hard to convict. This is not like murder where you could find residue on a man's car 3 months from now. We're talking about certain crimes where even men like Hunter Biden could be going years without even figuring out certain things, and he locked up with him every single damn day. So it's like people could encrypt all different types of things. There has been literal focus groups on trying to hunt down high profile people in the midst of prostitution rings, and up to now they can't find a lick of evidence. We're talking about the FBI, Homeland Security. We're talking about people with beasts of machines on their back, millions of dollars, that can't even find one lick of evidence to convict anybody. So I find it very odd that we want to sort of put this strain on a criminal justice system that not put strain on cultural parent. What needs to be done?
Michelle,
that's crazy.
To get back into the nitty-gritty of what you said in terms of prosecution there. The loss of evidence, very strange. Very strange. Bad. However, very common in Trinidad and Tobago. The man of repute in the Shoguanas region, Sharon Sukdio, deceased. You all forget that his wife alleged she went into the station multiple times and made abuse reports, and her reports just... And I'm not saying that's good. I am not saying that's good. I am just pointing out the reality of the world we live in. And I understand this may be a more maternal, natural tendency to try and soften the world you live in. But that's for mothers. That's how you build a nest. That's how you build a home. You cannot soften the world. Those are realities we exist with that are unchanging. And okay, that like the evidence you talk about that went missing there, that's suspicious. That's wrong. That should have never happened. Somebody should lose their job for that. Should. But even if that evidence was kept, what she said was on the evidence were URLs and names. That's not going to get you a conviction. That's not how you convict people on those things. So, yes, the evidence may have started an investigation, but the chances of that investigation concluding is nearly zero. And that's not even to say there shouldn't be an investigation. I'm not saying that. I am saying that the reality of this is so inescapable that the best solution is avoidance. It's the sun, and to walk on the sun and not be consumed by the heat requires such a unique suit that we have never created yet. The best idea would be to just avoid walking on the sun. It would be beautiful if the ignorant children could walk on the sun and be protected even while they made that mistake. But unfortunately, the sun is unforgiving.
I think for me is the mentality of adults, the mindset that, and I think that's what got me a little, I was like, what? Okay, well, they do some errors, so they have to face the consequences. Like, this is the mindset we have as a people. We just so apathetic and be like, well, all right, yeah, I'll make a mistake. And this is the response we have when injustice is being done. And I think, it is very sad that we're not even trying to change. We just come to an acceptance of, well, this is Trinidad. Things go missing, things disappear. So as you said, avoid it. But at the end of the day, I can't take my emotion or my passion, I should say, out of it. Because children are being raped every day. As we speak right now, I guarantee you a child is being raped. Guarantee you. Somewhere in this country, a child is being abused.
Correct.
I see it every day. So for me to sit back with adults or listen to adults who say, well, it is what it is, and just teach children more, blame the parents when I know their parents who are trying, because children are in a system.
So what would you propose the solution to be? If not teach the children, not put weight on the parents, what's the solution?
The solution cannot be simple. It's not a simple solution. It has to be, it's I guess it's multifaceted, multi-layered. We have to, of course, educate children. We try to do it all the time. Kids will miss, some will make mistakes, some will hear, some may make mistakes, they feel pressured. These things happen, it will happen moving forward forever and ever, amen. That's the life stage of teenagers. They're going to feel pressure, they will make mistakes. As adults, when the mistakes happen, rather than we say, well, it is the world what it is, we educate again. Of course, they may have to feel the consequences because chances are they're not going to get resolution to it. I agree. But we as adults should never stop looking for solutions, whether it be legal, whether it be cultural change, whether it be education of the adults. Put in hardship and let's find ways. That's my point. Let's find ways. I may not have all the answers. I don't. But that's why we have people.
Ronnie, you're going after, I know. But have you considered, Michelle, that there may be no ways?
I think people and humans are ever evolving. We have technology that's ever evolving. And maybe it's my optimistic side. Maybe it's my hope and belief in humanity that maybe there's some glimmer of light somewhere still left. So you could blame that if you want.
Probably.
But I'm not a person to give up.
And I'm not. I don't mean in the sense of give up, because what I'm saying isn't give up. I'm saying tackle it with a different strategy, understanding that isn't going to change. And
agreed.
And I think that infinite hope that we could change the objective situation we are placed with is what created the nightmare of COVID-19 and the measures of COVID-19. Because some of people were going to die. People were just going to die, and you couldn't avoid it. Stopping people from going to the beach didn't stop any more people from dying. But sometimes the delusion of being able to control things makes it worse. And that's why very often, and this is a hot one, I'm going to say this and then trade to Ronnie. That's why very often women in power make some really bad decisions. Yeah, Ronnie, jump in.
You're good. No, I wanted to hit on two things. One, Michelle, I think the point you're trying to tie two different points together. Because you're saying, like children are being raped and guaranteed to have a child being raped right now. Yes, we're not talking about children not being raped. We're talking about teenagers with aging hormones that decide to practice self-harm. Not talking about somebody harming a child. We're talking about somebody who's harming themselves. Right? So I think, again, the solution is training children. But even to that point, when I was in school, it had a lot of girls.
You send?
Huh?
You how they?
Well, now, I don't know, probably. I never seen that. Nah. I'm joking. Technically. But anyway, when I was in school, it had a lot of girls that got exposed and whatever. And to me, it never even served as a deterrent to other girls. Because it's not to say it served as a deterrent to me. When I see them girls and them walking on the hall and all the fellas and them watching them and they know what the thing look like and the this look like, I say not me, but other girls was running into it. So in that situation, I think there must be consequences to pay. You have to pay for these things because and there's nothing that you could do that nobody could do, no adult, nobody could do to remove the consequences that you have to face. And these teenagers, they shortly will become adults. Who are the people that we would look to now to say, well, who protecting these adult people that making these bad decisions? No. While they are teenagers, even if they do the wrong thing, it is fair. It's only fair that they face the consequences to prepare them for the future when they make bad decisions to pay for the consequences then. Because there is nobody to protect these children, these teenagers. I will definitely want to differentiate. These teenagers that will be turning adults in 2-3 years' time. You understand? So, children being raped and teenagers filming their own thing.
He's not on the child. He's not on the child grip.
Teenagers and children. Teenagers are teenagers. Children are children. Adults are adults.
Lonely bro, I see you asking that over and over. The topic is wide ranging. Right now we're talking about a pornography ring that they're trying to close down in Trinidad for a very long time. Michelle, you are right. You are right. When you say as if we didn't make poor decisions, thank God we didn't have cell phones. Actually, I had the cell phones in my teens, and they are VGA. I don't know if you all know what VGA is. They are VGA blurry pictures of people business out there. They are VGA pictures of people business out a road. So there were people in my days. There were people in my days doing the most. And I remember sitting with some of my friends recently, and we were discussing how some of us in the crew, some of us in the group, didn't make it through the 20s. There are some people we left in the 20s. Dead. Fellas I went to school with, fellas I grew up with, didn't make it. As adults, how we allowing that? There is children who die. How we allowing that? We had to do something about it. Make sure those children who die come back. Can we do that? Because that's what it sounds like on the female side. Because on the male side, when males make those teenage mistakes, because they are teenage mistakes, when the boy make the teenage mistake, he ends up dead. We could undo death? That's unfair, right?
Children are a product of the environment. Yes or no?
To a large extent, yes.
To a large extent, they are a product of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The society we live in, with the high on rate, we top in platforms.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely top in platforms globally.
Yep.
For a very small island. I want you to really sit and hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
When a child grows up in this particular environment, right, and they are exposed to certain things. Now, even if they're not exposed, right, they have predators around. We'll try again. It will never stop. I know this. We all know this. My issue is when we start to blame children for sometimes acting out what they see as young kids, falling for the peer pressures because they weren't loved at home, they weren't cared for them properly. They fall for the peer pressure, man talking their ears to the girls, and they do what they do, and fall for all these things. It happened in my time, it happened before, it's gonna happen after.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Children cognitively, Nathan, psychologically are not developed to make certain decisions.
I agree.
Their hormones are raging. I agree the parents are supposed to guide. but they will slip through the cracks like they did in my time. They did in these kids we're dealing with now time, and it will happen again in the future.
And they die. They slip through the cracks and die. They make mistakes that cannot be undone.
Yes, and there are females too who end up in domestic violence situations and die from products of their environment. What I am saying is, there are some who make it, and the ones I don't like, or for me personally, this goes back to the idea of when we tell a child don't do something, it's almost like we're talking a language like a baby. You tell them don't crawl there, they can't understand what you're saying, but because they do it, you hit them or you beat them because they don't understand fully yet. No, I agree with the consequences. I'm hearing everything you're saying, but what I am putting forward is not forget these are, yes, Ronnie, they are children. Teenagers are still children. Legally, they are still children. All right, and there's a reason for it, because cognitively they cannot make properties. That's why we have statutory rape. Even though they quote unquote consent, they cannot make that decision. So to blame, in other words, to say, well, it's your fault, deal with the consequences, I have an issue with that. They are supposed to guide, and even if their parents did not guide them, the adults who know better should at least try. Because you know what? Well, some will make it done, some will.
Here's where, and I could agree with most of what you see. Here's where I think I have a shade difference. I am not saying I blame the children. I'm not using that word. I'm not saying I blame them. So I wouldn't say good for you. I wouldn't say that. If it was an adult, like if I have a sister in 33, 34, 35, and you go on and show your putty gal to the world, you peel your putty gal and show your whole putty gal to the... I telling you it's good for you. You're too big on your sense. But I will not tell that to a teen. And that's the reason why. For the same thing like the how we try children differently than we try adults. But we do try children. And there are consequences. And what I am saying is not that you tell them it's good for them, but you reinforce those consequences to an extreme level. That's why I brought the relation, the relative of it on the male side, I brought to death. To young boys who join a gang and die, because it's so serious. This thing, throwing yourself online, is so serious, you cannot get it back, that we have to treat it like that. Where if a mother, if you as a parent see your son going down the gang road, there's nothing you will not do to make sure he doesn't go that road. You will chain him to a bed if so needs be, because you know that road is death. And there's no coming back from that death. And I think as parents, especially women, oh gosh, big women need to teach little girls. Instead of trying to tell the little girls it's the fault of the perverts online, they're doing the bad thing in a girl, show that the perverts them. We have to turn the country upside down to try and catch all the perverts, which will never happen. It's a lie. Try to teach the young girls, keep yourself close.
Yes, and that is all part of the multi-pronged approach. But the facts are, Nathan, some of them will listen, some of them may not. And for the ones who may not listen, when you really dive what's happening, people are motivated by multiple things.
Correct.
People make decisions based on their history, based on their social upbringing, based on their social circles, based on their education level. It's not a cut and dry thing. We have this mistake in our culture, and probably globally too. We have this say, well, why should do that for? I would not do that. We always compare. You know, somebody's decision to ours. A lot of people do that all the time. I hear it all the time. Why this person going down there? She look for that. You don't know why. You don't know why she's going down that route, because of a complex thing. What I'm saying is with children, and I will cut out after this. Children are children. We need to remember that. Yes, I agree with consequences. Yes, I agree. We warn them. We tell them. We do everything. We hold them by the neck, drag them. I agree. But when these things happen, and they will, can we not to blaming a child making a mistake and try our best and not give up the fight on trying to protect the kids, because at the end of the day, if we give up, then all is lost, in my view.
I got you.
I don't even think this is a blame thing, to be very honest. I think, and this is the thing for me, right? The differentiation between baby, toddler, child, and teenager is there for a certain reason. There's a reason why a 2-year-old can't have a driver's license, but a 16-year-old can.
Well, 17
right?
in Trinidad.
Well, 17 in Trinidad, big up that. You got 16, I think it's 16 learners, right?
Yeah.
You got learners at 16, right? Right. We have afforded the society where we believe that the cognitive sense of a 17-year-old teenager is there in order for them to drive a vehicle up and down the nation's streets. So, and if we're talking about the psychology of humans, do people understand that we learn right and wrong at a very young age? Like we learn that specific thing, even though, yes, listen, always make mistakes till the end of time. Humans are not perfect. Humans will forever make mistakes. Listen, Bobby Beanhead makes mistakes every single damn day. We come here and discuss Bobby Beanhead, right? And his mistakes of governance of this country, and that man could be my grandfather. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and he's a big man. He's educated. He's quite well informed. He speaks well, but he's not falling. He's not ever that well put together to say that he's never going to ever make a mistake. The thing of the matter is that coming down to it, it's really about what we can do formulating around the society and reality that we have. That's just it for me, right? I could sit down here right now in my gallery just saying now, and a man could run down the hill right now, bus 2 shot, kill me, and now everybody crying at my funeral. Well, to prevent that, I put locks on my doors. I fasten all hatches to make sure I give the criminal elements as much barrier to entry to my life as possible. That's just the reality I live in. And if I have children, I am going to make sure the barrier to entry to my children from outside people to be the hardest thing possible. No child of mine will ever be in my house recording themselves to send to nobody. It's never happening. It will never happen. And if it happen, best believe every cell phone, every network provider will be burned down to the ground because it's never been released to any public site possible. Elon Musk will have to see me because Mark Zuckerberg will have to see me because nothing will ever be released or leaked online. Here's what I'm saying, man.
And you know, Chinotep, I find what you see how you're reacting here. I think that is the solution needed. We need all parents to act like that. And that's how you solve that issue. You don't solve that issue that by when the 15-year-old girl reaches 25, she launches a lawsuit to try and comb the internet to get back her pictures. What? Anybody who understands how the internet works know that's impossible. These guys who are sharing your content now isn't even your first ex-boyfriend who originally had it. He done shared to his first group since 2016 and it's just other people sharing it now. It on people hard drive. It has some perverts sitting in a corner in, let me don't call no area in Trinidad before people get annoyed. Some perverts sitting in a corner with a hard drive and your stuff there. No, I'm not saying about it in terms of statute of limitations. I'm saying about it in terms of possibility. You cannot get it back. You cannot. It's just not how it works. It's like you pee in the ocean, you peed in the ocean, and you're trying to get back your urine. You're not going to get it back. And I kind of have an issue also. I do believe teenagers are not adults. I do believe there's a difference. But I think in modern times, we have elongated childhood for too long. And that is causing problems. An 18-year-old is not a child. A 17-year-old is not a child. And it's very strange to me that people talk on evolutionary biology. I know the law would disagree, but I would disagree with the law, and biology would disagree also. It's amusing to me that we live in a secular world that claims to be run by the science. And trust me, you don't want the answer biology gives on adulthood.
I'll cut you there.
Would be Nathan.
What's that, Michelle?
Would that be? Does biology say on adulthood?
When you
I would love to.
experience puberty.
Puberty is puberty in terms of sexual maturity, which is what we generally define adulthood in biology often as. Puberty kicks in way before 18.
I'll experience it. Say between, let's say, 11, between 9 and 13, right? Average. So would you say a 9-year-old who has reached sexual maturity should be?
No, I will
Understand
not.
what I'm saying? This is the same argument pedophiles make, and I said it just now. Pedophiles will say that, I'm not saying anybody is there. Like preface at one time. I've heard many pedophiles say that once a child or boy, whatever, just sexual maturity, then they are sexually available. Then they should be legal then for them to be able to.
That's not what I'm
child
saying.
marriage laws, all those things, tying up into all of that. That's the argument there, right? This is why we say 18, because cognitively, even though the biology of it, physical body.
What changes at 18? What changes at 18?
Nothing changes at 18. This is why I said it's up to actually 20 something. It's actually, I think it's 20.
So then the law is wrong too. You said the law says it, but the law is also wrong. If you're saying it's at adulthood, then adulthood for humans would only be after 25?
Cognitively, people will develop at different rates depending on a lot of different factors, because trauma will stunt cognitive development. All right.
All right. So if you're saying for an adult to have relations with a not mature adult shouldn't be right, are you saying anyone who hasn't yet developed their prefrontal cortex is a child, and that anyone dealing with that kind of person is on a pedophile range?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's a spectrum, right? There may be 18-year-olds who are much more mature than 30-year-olds, right? In terms of the exposure and all of that.
And here's the thing I'm saying, Michelle.
What scientists tried to do was try to draw a range between where they estimate that the brain would have developed to a degree that they can reasonably make logical decisions, understanding the consequences of such.
And here's what I believe, Michelle. I don't believe that anybody reaches a point like that. And I think the societies previously had solutions to that, because no person was a unit. So all decisions were made on a familial basis. That's why arranged marriages, etc. So they didn't expect the person at teenage years to make the best decision. So the decision was made by group. And nearly everything was done as such. And because of that, we were able to get things going faster. That, as I was saying evolutionarily, this doesn't make sense. Humans are not at their breeding maturity age at 25. I think the peak is pre-25. So
but not.
There are some serious. So then it seems to suggest to us that our body, by design, is meant to make babies before we have fully developed our cognitive ability. What's wrong with that if that's the way our bodies were designed?
See, this is why it's so complex, and I said earlier it's going to require a lot of discussion more than we have actual time for. And I actually need to go to pick up my government work in the morning. So, so what I will say is this is a very heavy discussion that needs more time than we have. And I will just simply say that when we look to blame, and I'm not talking necessarily about the woman who, you know, the women who looking for their pictures how much of a years later. Talking about our teenagers in our midst, our young people in our midst. When we have people who may, you know, let's look at them with a not necessarily judging whip.
Do you judge the bandits? The home invaders, those 6, 7, 8 fellows who run up in the house of people's houses 18, 19. Do you judge them?
Let me put it like this. I am very big on justice, but I also have a mercy because I understand how the mind, things that can influence. I agree with justice. There's a side of me, and maybe that's my training, that's my faith, that's all of it in one, that you know, influences how I view the world. All right? I can, if I track back, counseling me will look back and see, well, okay, this is where the breaking point was, this is may have happened. So I can have empathy for that side of it. Do I agree that the action shouldn't be punished? I agree they should be punished. I agree with that. But I can also see beyond that, is what I'm saying.
Well, yes, I agree. I agree. I see beyond, and a lot of those 16, 17-year-old bandit boys, to be very honest with you, it could be because I'm a man. It could be because I'm a man and I have my biases. But I feel sometimes more sorry for them than for the girl who sent her nudes. Because some of those boys, you look at the cards stacked against them and it was nearly impossible for them. Some of those girls had everything. You just wanted to rebel against your parents. And
I'm not sure how we get into a gender discussion.
I just said how we get into a gender discussion. I just said it because I'm probably a man and I see it that way. And I say I have more sorry for them. I was talking about the mercy side. I feel more sorry for them probably because a lot of them, if you look at it, you see exactly how they end up in that situation. If you live around some of those guys, you see 3 generations of fathers not there. The prime picture I always paint is the look on those boys' face where you could see they didn't bathe in a couple of days. That kind of streaky look on their skin. You see that. You're seeing these guys are destitute and they're out here locking people neck and robbing people. But when they do that, and if the police bounce up on them, and the police pump them full with what the police do sometimes. Consequences. I do feel the mercy, but consequences. Yeah, people, it's 12. Let me hear the closing. Ronnie, Trini, Hotep, Michelle. Let me hear your closing there and let's dive out.
So I wanted to make the point long ago.
Sorry.
I was just saying, I would say I kind of blame the girls because Michelle is like, I don't blame them. I kind of do blame them. Think a little bit more bullying needs to come back and to run society a little bit better. So you bully them girls and they're meant to stop doing stupidness, stop being stupid. So, you know, a little bit more bullying would help.
Every last statement from Ronnie is we trouble in it. What is the other thing the other day? You trying to wipe out populations and thing?
Yeah, populations. Stop it. But no. I just saying, like, in all honesty, nothing is going to change. You can't prevent somebody from being misused. So all you can do is ensure that the person, they don't misuse themselves in the first place. Right? So you say to your young ladies, listen, if you send a naked pictures to anybody, you are a fool for doing that. And you say it to them straight. Like, if I ever see you doing that kind of garbage, I will box you up in your head so hard, eh? Like, them kind of thing is where you need to be telling to your girl children, you know?
I am 100% certain Michelle hearing this, like, her counseling knowledge is sending off all the alarms.
Yeah. my child coming in there, and Michelle is like, this child is abused. This child, you know something? This child ain't gonna have no OnlyFans. They're not gonna have no news on the internet. They're not gonna have no child before they whatever. You understand? They'll be abused, but they'll be well. I think a little bit more of that is needed and necessary in society to get us back on the right track. So all these young parents, remember, bully your child a little bit.
God. The views and statements expressed by the panel are not necessarily the views of Nathan Spring and the Mindful organization. Yeah, Hotep, what's going on, bro?
I don't think it's necessarily bullying. I think it's just good old-fashioned shaming, you know? Good old-fashioned shaming. Because I remember that time, and it probably still is so, but I remember that time, you know, during school, if a girl does something like that and she got leaked, she would be shamed for the entire school year.
That's slut shaming.
And her face wouldn't be seen for quite some time. You will want to know where she has docked off, but not knowing that she has been meek and quiet for the entire rest of the school year. So I think some good old-fashioned shaming and shunning of your general society needs to be taken place. Not bullying. Bullying is just crazy. I think bullying is extreme for sure. Shaming, that's a good old-fashioned shaming. But you see, now we have replaced shaming with cuddle the victims.
Affirmation, man. Affirmation.
Yeah, affirmation, cuddle the victims, because we need to cuddle the victims. And here's the thing. Victims are victims, and that's fine. That's what the word victims are for, but you also have to judge why they become victims. It just is what it is. Right? You see, nobody would cuddle me if I take myself on Bessor Street and start throwing up signs in the middle of Bessor Street saying, listen, not only could play bad man for me, and I catch one in my hip. You will watch me in Mount Hope Hospital and say, stupid. You are to be the dunsiest man possible to do that. So the thing about it here is good old fashioned shaming. You understand what I'm saying? Shame. Don't shame the victim for necessarily, becoming a victim, but shame them for the fact that you could have prevented this to some degree. Because, as we all like to say, prevention is better than cure. That just is what it is, right? Preventing certain things from happening to you is better than having to now scramble about the place to find some cure for a thing that has never been curable. It's like understanding HIV and AIDS is there and just not really rambling with trying to get it. Prevent yourself from that. You know what I'm saying? It's hard, but it's possible. Right? It's hard things to do, but it's possible. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, be mindful, not mindless. You know what I'm saying? That's just the general consensus. And that's why I keep saying that slogan, because that's what needs to happen. To be more mindful.
Correct.
And not be mindless to your general society and the surroundings, because you'll be having dumb arguments talking about man versus bear. You know what I'm saying? And that's a topic we have discussed, the man versus bear nonsense. But,
we will. We will. Oh, jeez. Michelle.
Sigh. Bullying, shaming. So I will accept that my views may be not in because of my background and my exposure. I see on a daily basis what most people don't see. And I see the consequences of what bullying and shaming, all that does to children. I see it every day. And I will take that as my experience. And I would ask that people, and I don't come on very often, but when I do, that is from the perspective I speak. I am also a Christian when I say the Bible talks about love covers a multitude of sins. I have also seen what love and compassion and empathy to heal. And people have changed their lives around by simply being heard, by simply being, by feeling that love and that ability to make a mistake and still feel like, you know what, I can become better than this. All right? So that again is my perspective on it. And with regards to the children, I will maintain human beings are very complex and they're very dynamic, and their children could grow up in the same household and can be completely different human beings because their experiences will be different. I think as adults who are supposed to be sober-minded and protectors of the youth and the younger generation, we do our best and we try. Granted, we live in a different world now, but as much as we can, try our best to help, we protect, and we guide. I do not subscribe to believe. To me, it's like violence begets violence. And bullying and shaming are forms of violence. Product of slavery and indentureship days, maybe. We are a very mentally distraught people. We talk about this in work all the time. When we hear, oh, yeah, but that rod, King David, doesn't have to be like a physical rod. I'm not saying there is not a place for it. By and large, we can do better as a society. And that's just my view. Again, because I see daily from you, because where you guys are at, you all don't sit where I sit. And that's why to some I might seem idealist or spinning, whatever the case may be with regards to the comments. But I've also seen the product of what counseling, supportive care, all of that can do, how much people we heal on a daily basis. Undo the damage of bullying and shaming against children. All right? So I'm not expecting to change anybody's mind. These are big people here. I grieve that this is the mindset that we have as a people. Because but it is what it is, like you say, Nathan. I'm just one person, and I can't change everybody's mind. But that is just my perspective on it. I hope maybe if somebody listens, they may take a different approach. Their children, all right, rather than shame and bully and berate, you have conversations. Be willing enough to have your children come talk to you, so they don't fear you. To say, Mom, I made a mistake. Dad, I made a mistake, and you will be able to guide them accordingly. You know?
Yeah.
But that's just my piece. Again, guys, debate is always good as always. Running a UN convention. Well, my girl. Anyways, good night, guys. Thank you so much again, Nathan. I don't know when you'll see me again, but yes.
Appreciated. Always very, very appreciated. I love having the different views are much better than one view. We don't want one person. We don't want everybody wanting to bully their children. The different views are much better. I think shame and bullying by extension, and I know you used bullying on purpose to be just a little spicy, but I think the thing with shame and bullying and those kind of things that's a bit unique is that it's a crowd immunity attempt. So shaming and bullying would hurt the individual. But the idea of shaming is that we shame this individual so much that everyone looks at it and does not want to be in that same position. And it works. Now, you could talk about the psychological effects after, but that's why it works. Because people don't like to be shamed. That's why it works. Societies that shamed more generally had less of certain behaviors. And while I agree that love and affection are essential, and you should not be berating your child, and my child does not grow up in a toxic atmosphere of insults and berating and all of that. I think this idea of overloving everyone is toxic. And the United Nations might be, what Ronnie said there, the United Nations might be the poster child for it. And you see the effects of it also. And I find it a bit dishonest that many in the therapy and counseling field would be always willing to look at the negatives of the strict disciplinarians and overdoing it on the punishing side. But they never seem to look at the negatives of these boys who think they're girls. Why is this happening now in this society? And why didn't it happen before? Why are we in a society now where children cuss their parents much more regularly? How can we only see the negatives on one side? But we don't seem somehow to see that children aren't made to be pampered into adulthood. That doesn't work either. And I'm a teacher. So you spoke about in your position and seeing what you see. I'm a teacher. In my position, I could look at a child and know the kind of parenting they get. I know the parents that, well, we don't beat her. We are, we do gentle parenting, We don't try to raise our voice. And that child is a menace. He is a nightmare. Consequences are lost on him. Tone of voice means nothing. You could raise your voice, you could speak. They do nothing. They are uncontrollable. You are making a demon for the world. But no, it's because you love them so much. Ezekiel is fact, Cardell. Ezekiel is fact. Himself. And that's what I see as a teacher. I see that as a teacher. And that's why someone said their Dimple says, but I feel like I pamper my kids, but I also discipline them. And that's why, to me, the natural design of male and female parent works so well. Because there is one who is naturally more empathetic and keen on softening the nest. Naturally, genetically made that way. And there is one who is more pragmatic, logical, and looks at action, consequence, action and reaction more plainly. And those two work together. Mumsy could overlove, Daddy will keep it straight. Alright, people, that's all I have for now. If you're educated, informed, or entertained, I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live. Ronnie says I'm just a talker. My channel is so spoiled. Daddy need to be stern. Ronnie, I know. It's literally difficult for many mothers to do. That's a fact. That's just a fact. That's why, like, for single mothers to pull that disciplinarian role, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. You really have to give it to them. Disciplinary action has been lost with the law. Alright, people, I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow evening around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, peace out. Hold it down. Hope you're educated, informed, and entertained, as I said. Bye. I should be able to have a snap to turn off. And it turns off.